life lesson did you learn that you will never forget, and when did you learn it? Story 1. My dad taught me as a teenager that relationships should be easy. Biggest and best lesson I've ever learned. Relationships should not be filled with drama, but with friendship and respect. Really helped me choose who to be with. Now I teach my daughters the same thing, so maybe they can prevent being in a painful relationship. Story 2. My best friend passed away a few years ago, and I learned 2 life lessons. 1. Never keep people in your life if they don't love and respect you as much as you do them. 2. Never take for granted the time you spend with the people you keep. It could be over any day. Story 3. You don't like everybody, so don't worry about everybody liking you, of course. Be respectful to everyone you meet, but don't bend over backwards to please all of them. Story 4. You don't ever truly know another person. Unless you can take up residence in their head, you'll never be privy to their true nature. Learn this through the process of growing up and losing friends. It's not always malicious. Sometimes you latch onto the idea of a person rather than who they are. It'll eventually drive you apart as you realize that there's incongruity between who they are and who you think they are. Story 5. Most people have families who love them and support them, but some people don't, and they don't know that it's terrible because it's just normal for them. It took me 32 years of life, 4 years working with severely traumatized children, and 2 years of therapy to realize that I too was traumatized from day one. Story 6. One time I got a flat tire and it was raining. I kept turning right to remove the tire, and a guy on a bike stopped and just said lefty loosey, righty tighty, and just left. I never forgot it. It's not life-changing, but it has helped me a lot in life. Story 7. I was 21 when I learned that just because you've been friends with someone a long time does not mean you're obligated to stay friends with them forever. If you're at the point where you dread being around them, leave. No amount of history is worth your peace. Story 8. Not everyone at work is and wants to be your friend. Some just pretend, and then you over. Learned that doing my apprenticeship and found the same in almost every other company I worked for so far. Story 9. It is better to be alone than to be surrounded by those that hate you. Lesson I learned, though I would rather ignore it, but it might help someone else. Story 10. Don't become a walking charity. When I was in my early to mid-20s, I had a lot of friends who were falling on hard times or needed various types of help, and I was only too happy to help. I had the money, I had the time, I would do anything for them. Not one of them repaid financially or otherwise. Instead, I was just taken advantage of left, right, and center. It all ended when I suggested a friend of mine who broke up with their partner and had no place to live come stay with me. Next thing I knew, they were inviting their friends over all the time, often without my permission. They weren't contributing a penny to the income of the household. Their new partner soon moved in, and my house basically became a doss house. And they became a mean-spirited, emotionally abusive who made my life miserable in my own home. Now I offer advice only. If you need financial support, you can go to the council. If you need housing, you can go to the council. If you want me to provide either of those things, you can off. Story 11. When I was about 9 years old, I used to bully a lad in my class. I felt like a tough guy because he was bigger than me. I bullied him because he came from a poor family, but ID always had a wealthy family. Until I was around 9 years old, my dad's alcoholism escalated and cost him his job and destroyed our family. I bullied that lad out of anger because of what I was going through, and then one day he beat the out of me. Our head teacher principal made us sit outside his office for a whole day together. Just the two of us. I quickly realized how much I upset him, and we became friends. Story 12. People treating you poorly is a reflection on them, not you. My brother taught me this after I got dumped when I was 16, and my best friend banged my ex the next day. Story 13. You can't fix another person no matter how long you stay with them. They have to want to treat you better and want to be better themselves, and going back to them only makes them think you'll stay no matter what they do to you. Prove them wrong. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Story 14. Most people's moral integrity isn't nearly as bulletproof as they believe it is, and often, through no fault of their own, we all have certain vulnerabilities that can make us do or say things we had previously thought were below us, whether it be trauma, desperation, loneliness, etc. Story 15. Somehow, my parents imparted to me life was a pie. If somebody got some, I got less. That if I wasn't doing something impressive or winning at something, I was failing. I thought the way to be valuable and get people to like me was to achieve more, prove how smart I was, and one-up them. You can imagine how that goes over. When people predictably didn't like that, I thought it was because I wasn't achieving enough or seeming smart or talented enough, so I'd get even worse. It's hard to undo such an ingrained mindset and to admit shortcomings and share vulnerability, but the gradual life lesson has been not to try to impress people, not to be ashamed of your true and perfect self, but to listen to people, share with them, and be open, honest, and vulnerable. Edit to add, not a zero, some game about physical or material things, more like attention and emotional things. My parents certainly never actually literally told me that. Either it's just some weird translation my brain did somehow. Story 16, when I was in high school, I took a day to go church shopping in a new part town. We must have gone to 5 services that day. Some were fun and lively, some were quiet and reserved, but one in particular really stuck out to me for being so kooky. It was October, and the preacher was starting his sermon to the room of 40 people with Halloween is right around the corner. Who here celebrates Halloween? I was the only person to raise my hand. The preacher goes, good, because Halloween is celebrating the devil, and we don't do that here. At this point, I quickly drop my hand as people give me weird looks. My mom then goes, by the way, it's not a good idea to volunteer information to a group of people you don't know. I learned that I need to wait until I understand at least the basic dynamics of a group before sharing anything about myself. In these cases especially, it's better to be quiet and anonymous than to stand out and be a target. We never ended up going back to any of the churches we saw that day, though. Story 17, always make time for loved ones. Time is not on your side. I learned this till late after my grandma died. I was always working or studying and said, next week I'm going to visit grandma. Next week I'll give her a call. Next week. I saw her at the family gatherings like birthdays and such if I was able to make them, but that's still different than going by her house and spend time together. The moments I did that it was nice and we laughed, so there wasn't a reason to not visit grandma. Always sweet, and even when I was in the 30s, she gave me a bag of candy when I left. One year, I was too busy, selfish, and hadn't visited for months. I wasn't aware it has been months. That was after I checked how long ago it was. September was the last visit, and in December, she passed away. I couldn't make time for 3 months. Not a single day. I could spare a few hours to visit Ka's career, and I'll go next week. This is more than 10 years ago, and it still haunts me at times. She was always understanding and be like, yeah, I know you youngsters are busy and need to work hard and don't have it as easy as we, even though she went through World War II and needed to walk 2 provinces for food. She considered that they had the easy life. I always thought I had enough time when I was done with insert something here. But always something else turned up. Next week I'll go was the worst thing I had told myself, and I wished I spend way more time with grandma. It made me change everything. I now only work 3 days a week and spend the rest of the time on my family and friends, make sure to give regular calls and make sure I could be at whatever is needed. Sure, working 5 days a week and having more money for fun is nice, but a bigger car or a bigger house or another vacation does not bring back time. Do I need a Range Rover 4x4 that costs 8 times the price of Ford Fiesta? No. Do I need a house with 8 bedrooms? No. Do I need time? Yes, time is all I wanted. Time is what we get in limited quantity. You can try and make changes in spending less or make more money, but you can't make more time. There's 24 hours in a day. Spend them wisely, and don't think others have the same time left as you. The biggest lie I told myself was that I didn't have the time. I had the time, I just managed it badly. My grandma was 89, so she was on borrowed time. But it could as well be my wife who I take out for dinner next week but gets ill or an accident. You don't know what it is you have until it's gone. Edit, wow, thanks for the awards and all the nice replies. Even though I changed my life, I went to bed pretty sad after I wrote this, but this lifted my spirit. Happy it helps some of you, and hope you all get to spend the time you want. Story 18, listen to your body. For years, I pushed myself to my physical limits. I went without sleep, skipped meals, stress ate, often had emotional breakdowns, etc. You know what eventually happened. Multiple mental illnesses, emotional disorders, unexplained chronic pain, unexplained neurological failures. My body literally started shutting down to slow me down and force some self-care. It's taken years of prioritizing my health, and I'm still struggling with lesser remainders of those issues. Take it from me. Please, please, please listen to your body. When your body-mind is tired, rest. When you're hungry, eat intuitively. When you're stressed, find an effective way to decompress, journal. Go on a walk. Talk it out with a person you trust, exercise, etc. When you already have too much on your plate, say no. I know it can be easier said than done, but it's a worthwhile investment in yourself. You are worth it. Story 19. I was doing forced landing practice in the training area in a Cessna 152 Aerobat with my instructor. On the way back to land, he asked me this question, what will you do if the engine catches fire? I looked at him and said, jump out. He said, no, you just control the plane. You yell the plane to get the fire away from the cockpit. And just keep flying. You forget about the fire and do what is within your control. I looked at him, stunned, and said, that's profound, Steve. I promptly took that advice and applied it to every aspect of my life. Don't worry about things that are outside your control. Story 20. You could be the most competent, hardest working, most dedicated employee in a company, but the promotions are most likely to go to the people who have made a personal connection with the boss. I learned that at my first job, and it's been true ever since. It's why I'll never homeschool my kids. I could give them a much better academic background. but the interpersonal skills they develop in school will benefit them more. Story 21, if you don't ask, you don't get. Worked as an admin for salespeople, and OMG, did they get over on people, demanded things from everyone that they had no right to, but they usually got what they wanted. I learned to say no to them and stick to it, and I learned to make my own demands. Sometimes I got what I wanted, and sometimes I didn't. But I never received anything I wanted but didn't ask for. Does that make sense? Always ask, you just might get it. Story 22, it's okay not to like everyone. Growing up, I was always told I should be friends with everyone, even people who drove me crazy with their drama. While I try to be kind and considerate to people, I have learned it's okay not to like someone. I don't have to be their friend. Story 23, to not care what other people thought of me and my life choices. I learned this when I divorced my abusive husband. So many people in my life at the time thought I was so wrong for getting divorced. However, they weren't the one living with a control freak and walking on eggshells to avoid getting beat, and then getting beat anyway. None of those people are in my life anymore and haven't been since my divorce. Story 24, you can love a person and hate the things they do. My dad did a lot of bad things, and even knowing what he did when I grew up, I can't help but remember the good parts of him and love him. Story 25, always give your family and friends a loving word and a hug before you leave their presence, because you don't know if you'll ever see them again. I learned it today when I went to my aunt's apartment and she was dead. The guilt will eat me forever. Story 26, working in the justice system has made me rethink my understanding of good people and bad people. I think most of us have the potential to do monstrous things, given the right set of bad circumstances and strategically applied pressure. Happily, though, it's not a foregone conclusion. Story 27, sometimes, even if you are right, you can still be wrong. Being right can be used as a weapon to hurt people. Sometimes people need sympathy. Sometimes people just need you to be quiet and listen. Story 28, to always wear a helmet when riding a bike. I came off it when I was 9 or 10, and I hit the ground so hard that the brand new helmet broke in half, and I couldn't walk for about a week. Luckily, I fell off in front of Ormedic's house, and I was with my cousin, so I was okay, but if I didn't wear that helmet, I wouldn't be here today. Story 29, I worked in an after-school program for a bit. There was a kindergarten girl who was supposed to be doing her homework, but was slacking off and had not been doing well all day. I was kind of hard on her about being off task, and she totally went off on me. She said, "You have no idea how hard it is. I have to get up early every morning so I could be at school by 8. I have grown-ups telling me what to do all day. Then I come here and I have more grown-ups telling me what to do. I have to do my homework, and then finally when I go home at 6, all there's left to do is eat dinner, take a bath, and then wake up the next day and do it all over again." It was a good reminder that being a kid can often be incredibly difficult, especially since you almost always have adults telling you what to do all the time and have very little to no choice in how your day goes. I did my best to make things more fun and offer more freedom after that. Story 30, better regret stuff that you did than regret not doing it. Learned that 10 years ago when I decided not to confess my love for someone I liked a lot, you'll never have another chance. Story 31, when someone shows you who they are, especially if they show you repeatedly, believe them. I had an ex I caught lying multiple times, suspected of cheating multiple times, generally showed me I wasn't as important to him as his good times were. Surprise, surprise, a year later, when he dumps me, and I find he's been cheating and lying for our entire relationship. Story 32, the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. Relationships, career, everything. Don't give up and throw things away because it gets tough. Fix it and make it better, or put into it and grow what you want. Story 33, you can always take more ketchup, but you can't put it back if you take too much at once. Well, technically you can put it back, but not easily. I learned this from my mom as a child. She wasn't trying to be profound or anything, but little did she know that was my first lesson in entropy. It's better to be delicate in all situations in life than to go too big too fast. Think about whenever you've regretted saying something immediately after saying it, and this little saying could save you in the future. Story 34, expecting enough love from others to have a sustained income of love won't work. Love yourself, and you always will be loved unconditionally. The realization of this was huge to me. In the past, I tried so hard to appeal to everyone around me, work, family, but one day, I asked myself, what is it that I need right now? The answer was love. I realized that I was always trying to appeal to oh-heyers by being nice. If I could be nice to others because I wanted love, why can't I be nice to myself? So I changed my behavior towards me, learned to say no, and after that my world changed completely. Story 35, 71 years here. I got dumped spectacularly at 18. Best life lesson a young cat could receive. The lesson, you're not the center of anyone's universe but your own. Mine, there were refresher courses along the way. Story 36, one who does nothing but wait for a ship to come has already missed the boat, learned it about 30 seconds ago, and a fortune cookie seemed relevant. Story 37, people really aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. I worked retail and then started to notice that same glossy-eyed self-centeredness from customers permeate almost all my other interactions, too. Story 38, if you think it could never happen to you, you're wrong. It was a hard and sad lesson to learn. Found out I was pregnant. It was unexpected, but very wanted, and we were so excited. 3 miscarriages later, and still no children. Infertility sucks. Not a statistic I want to be associated with. Story 39, nothing that life has to offer is worth the price of worry. This I read from Think and Grow Rich, and is a sentence that has helped me deal a lot easier with everything. Story 40, it's not coming with you. Whatever baggage you carry around, whatever you think of yourself, of your family, it's all gone the moment you die. It's not coming with you. Life is ultimately meaningless, which means you're free to make your own meaning. You can put your baggage down at any time. Don't hold on to anything too tightly. It's not coming with you. Cancer taught me that. Story 41, I learned to view my family as good friends. Some friends are worth dropping everything to help. Some are acquaintances that you only talk to occasionally. Some friends are not friends at all and just use and abuse you. Just because somebody is related to you by blood does not mean that you owe them anything. Story 42, you should never depend on anyone to support you. Do it yourself. I grew up the daughter of a single mother, and when my own marriage fell apart, I was in a good financial situation because I have always made my own way. Story 43, always assume the gun is loaded. My dad, my brother, and I were coming back from a shooting trip several years ago, and we were helping put the guns away, and my dad was checking them before putting them back in the safe to be cleaned later. He picked up the shotgun, and my brother asked a question that I don't remember. My dad racked the shotgun, and out popped a fired shell. My brother and I, being kids, thought it was funny, but I still remember my dad's look of wide-eyed horror before he realized it was a fired shell, and how he carefully inspected the chamber and lifter before closing the action. It was only later that it dawned on me that there was almost certainly a time between packing up, moving the duffel bags, and checking the weapon that the barrel was pointed either at one of us or someone else through an object it could have fired through. About 13 years later, I'm out by myself firing my new Henry Golden Boy and a few other things, and start packing up. As I'm about to put the Henry away, the look of horror on my dad's face flashes in my mind. So I run the action just in case a live round plops out into my gun case. Lesson learned, retained, and acted upon. Story 44, as you reach adulthood, i.e. paying for a majority of things on your own, and you make a majority of the decisions in your life. Believe in the decisions you make and unapologetically do what makes you happy regardless of what your parents think. They don't live your life, and you will develop resentment if you don't do what truly makes you happy. I was 26 when I realized. Story 45, my mom died suddenly a month ago. I moved 4 years ago for college, but I had a really strong bond with her, talking to her every day and visiting often. She was amazing, always saying how proud she was of me, that she missed me, but was so happy I was living my life and was happy. I loved her with all of my heart, and every time I was lost or sad, I would call her, and she would always have solid advice. And I love you no matter what to say. I had finished my last college exam on Thursday, but decided I wasn't going home that weekend because I just wanted to sleep and relax at home. She called me Friday morning, asking how I was and clearly wanting to chat, but I had so many important things to do. I told her we'd talk later. Saturday morning I went out and was out shopping and having a good time. I remembered to call, but I thought I'll call her back later today or tomorrow. Saturday afternoon they called me to say her heart had just stopped, and she didn't make it. Make time for the people you love and for the people who love you. Take out 20 minutes of your day. People always say life can end at every minute, but I realize how sadly true that is. I wish I had talked to her all through Friday and Saturday and gave her all of my time. She deserved it. I love you, Mom. Story 46, not letting those around me decide who I'm meant to be in my career. The stress of extreme poverty and my mother getting cancer when I was 7 pushed me into a constant natural state of survival. I used art as an escape and became extremely good at it. Over time, that's what I was told I'll always do despite being decent in other subjects. I even had a test in high school tell me I'd never be anything but a janitor. Whenever I tried out sports or the sciences, I got laughed at and told to get back into my art, even by family. It took me until I was 25, on my own away from everyone, to realize my career and mindset is up to me. Now am 5 years away from graduating with 3 associate's degrees in computer science, mathematics, and physics, and soon my bachelor's. Who gives a what others think? Story 47, just because your parent gave birth to you doesn't mean you have to love or respect them. I came from an incredibly toxic family, and it took me a while to learn that. Story 48, know your audience, though. I learned this phrase from my ma when I was a kid after saying something disrespectful to her. This phrase has guided me to success in relationships, careers, and life. Knowing who you are speaking to and adjusting how you speak to them is an invaluable asset for life. Story 49, time goes by faster than we think. I learned this the last 24 hours I spent with my grandma. As she was passing from dementia, I made a fort on the floor of her care facility room and talked to her about everything for an entire night. I slept on that cold floor for maybe an hour. I'd never been more terrified to fall asleep and have her slip away. Just us talking like we always did, except it was just me talking. She was my best friend and biggest supporter. I told her all my dreams and hopes for the next 5 years. I cried. I begged her to say she loved me one more time because I had to race up on an 8-hour drive as she started to slip and wasn't there the last time she spoke. She never did. She never spoke again. I asked her to forgive me for not having a kid before she left. She had always hoped for a great grandbaby for me. But I said no. My son is 5 now. I told her she needed to go, and I selfishly hoped she'd stay just a little longer because I didn't know what I would do without her. And it's been 4 years, and I still don't sometimes. Every time I looked at the clock, hours had passed, and she was slipping away faster and faster right in front of me. Those seconds we spent together that last night were not enough, and I'd do anything to hear her tell me she loved me one last time. Story 50, about 15 years ago, I was drinking with a friend of mine called Barnaby. He randomly said, "Do you want to see my squirrel?" So I, of course, demanded to see his squirrel. He led me into his garage where there was an extremely large cage. I scoured it, but could not see a squirrel. He said, "Oh, it'll be in its bed." The sock was hanging on the side of the cage. So I proceeded to go get a teaspoon and poke said sock. I poked it once, nothing. I poked it again, nothing. I poked it once more, and a red squirrel that looked pissed off like the devil incarnate leapt out of the sock screaming at me, trying to attack me. Never poke a sleeping squirrel in a sock with a spoon. An important life lesson. Just to add, we both worked in the animal industry, so someone offering you to see their squirrel wasn't that odd an occurrence. Story 51, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Phil Dunphy from Modern Family. For someone who gets frazzled with time pressure, this little mantra works like a charm. It doesn't make sense at first, but when you think about it, it's gold. Story 52, no, want to just shut the up and stay in your lane. Your opinion doesn't always need to voiced. I learned this way too late in life, like a couple of years after graduating college. Story 53, no matter what you're going through, someone has it worse. Dad showed my brothers and me this at very young ages. Not like in a way to compare bad situations or one up someone like, "Oh, you broke your arm, I broke my spine" type way, but to put things into perspective. I remember we were in single-digit ages and were whining about not getting Hanukkah presents we thought we'd get. And a few weeks later, he took us to downtown L.A. for a Christmas toy drive put on by L.A. firefighters. Seeing those homeless kids stoked on getting a single stuffed teddy bear or flip-flops totally changed me as a person. Story 54, that it is totally okay and important to congratulate yourself when you do something major important for you. Normally one that blows their own trumpet is considered to be self-absorbed, and it's frowned upon. As a consequence, you don't praise yourself after meaningful arguments. My grandma told me that I should celebrate myself after I graduated with fairly good grades from high school. That she was proud of me, but I needed to be proud of myself too. Story 55, love is not enough. You can love someone to distraction. You can love them so much it's all you think about. So much that you would burn down the world just to pull them from the ashes. That alone doesn't make a relationship work. Communication, compromise, all the boring hard things. That's what makes a relationship work. Story 56, I was 5 when my father taught me. You speak to people the way you want people to speak to you, and you treat people the way you want people to treat you. Story 57, treat people how you would like to be treated. I read this in a Bible, not trying to be religious, but it really hit me like a truck. This happened when I was about 8. So it really was early in my life, almost 15 years or so decades after I read that text. I'm surrounded by many supportive people and am known to be kind to people. Story 58, always take the high road and do the right thing. I was resentful of my husband for many valid things, but I should have left him instead. Our lives ended up so up. I was immature and petty, and I paid a heavy price. Story 59, dry my body from the top down. My uncle imparted this wisdom to me when I was a kid, when we all went to the swimming pool. It seems blatantly obvious, but I suspect if I hadn't been told this, I might never have really thought about why it's a smart thing to do. He also noticed I was walking along looking at the ground around the same age. He told me to look straight ahead and walk with my head up. Thanks, Uncle Desmond. Story 60, if you can't afford it, You can't have mortgages being the only exception. My dad taught me that young, and I never forgot it. Nothing is fancy enough to go into debt for. Story 61, I learned that always tell someone where you're going when you're going to late-night grinder hookups. I learned this the hard way when I was held hostage and gang raped over one weekend. Story 62, 2007, my shift at Taco Bell was dead that night. So we were all hanging out outside when a pair of sketchy characters rolled up. They wanted a ride because they ran out of gas. I was about to decline when the GM offered me up. Being that he held sway over my entire livelihood, I begrudgingly acquiesced. Long story short, they turned out to be cracked out of their minds and forced me to drive to a sketchy neighborhood via threat of stabbing, where they robbed me, used the money to buy more drugs, then tried to get me jumped. Luckily, they were both out of my car for a second as they were bringing others in, so I peeled out of there. Learned the lesson I will never forget when I went back, expecting my GM to be aghast at my crazy story. Instead, he was all fake surprise. He knew basically what would happen. He intentionally directed me to maybe get murdered and have my body dumped in a gutter somewhere, so that he wouldn't have to potentially deal with a pair of unruly customers for a few minutes. And that was the night I learned that some people will happily send you off to die for even the slightest personal gain. Story 63, don't be ashamed of your disability. Just because people can't see it, you don't deserve to be treated like someone is doing a favor for you. By letting you work for them, it's not okay for my employer to treat me like garbage and make snarky comments about my disability. Learned this last October. I'm 22. Story 64, never lend money to family to add to that. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean that you have to put up with their bullshit. I learned this the hard way after lending money to someone in the family. Story 65, never play with fire. When I was a child, I wanted to cook corn, and I burned down the whole barn of my home. Whole barn got burned into black charcoals, while I was saved by my neighbor. So kids, don't play with fire. Story 66, you have to live for yourself. For a long time, I hated myself and lived for those around me, my friends, and everything was great until one of them committed suicide. After that, things spiraled out of control until I was an inpatient and everyone around me was gone. My whole worldview shattered, and I realized that I had to rely on myself and live for myself to find any sort of fulfillment in life. Story 67, I used to have this friend with severe emotional issues. She came from a fed-up home, so I felt sorry for her and wanted to be there for her, but she was a lot to deal with it. She would be clingy and jealous, lash out at her friends, cut ties without any warning or explanation, and then apologize a month later. I felt like I was at my limit, but I didn't want to abandon her. I told the situation to another friend's mom, and she gave me this advice. Do what you can for them, support them, but don't let them drag you down. It stuck with me. I soon realized that my friend needed more help than I was qualified to give. We stopped talking a few months later. She had another episode where she got mad at me and blocked me on social media, and when her inevitable apology came, I ended the friendship. I told her that ID had enough. I told her that I wish her well, and I hope she gets help, but that it can't come from me. I still think about her sometimes, and I hope she's doing well. But I also hope I never see her again. Story 68, my coworker was obsessed with her job and pleasing the higher-ups where we work. She was the mother of 3 children who were tween teenagers. She was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago. When she was first diagnosed, it was in the very early stages. She put off treatment for 5 months to complete a project for our place of employment. By the time she started treatment, her cancer had gone from a stage I to a stage 3. She fought that cancer for the next 4 years, barely taking a day off work. No matter how sick she was dedicated to our employer and being a team player. It was painful to watch all of her duties gradually removed from her, but she was physically and mentally unable to do things as before. She died on a Thursday, in April, on the Monday following her death. We were in a staff meeting discussing new hires to replace her. By May, it was like she had never existed. The offices were reconfigured, so her office isn't even there anymore, and she has never mentioned at all what I learned from this one. Take care of your health. If you don't have it, you don't have anything too. You are replaceable. No matter how much you sacrifice for the sake of your career, they will fill your position without blinking an eye and never think of you again. 3. Take your time off to enjoy your life and family. Your coworkers will respect you just the same. Story 69. It's possible to do everything right and still lose. Don't waste your time and energy on someone who isn't giving anything back. Always have an umbrella handy. Story 70. Dating as a straight woman. Men do what they want to do. Started learning that at about 19. Finally absorbed it by 25. I'm 29 now, and finally in a mystery-free relationship.